Hi guys, welcome to the third episode of the Devlog series where I'm going over the development of my game, Adventures in Platinum. If you have no idea what the game is about and would like to know more, I highly recommend you to check out the previous episodes after you watch this video. Today we are going to do some changes on the NPC interaction part of the game. For the longest time I felt that the NPCs have mostly been just background characters which player hasn't really been interacting with too much outside of any possible quests. I basically wanted villagers to react more to players' behavior. For example, previously player could just run into a villager's houses and steal all of their valuable coins and apples, and villagers would just stand there watching and doing nothing. Now I want to add a small confrontation system for the villagers, which will make it harder for the player to do any misbehavior. Before we start adding any systems for the villagers, we first need to define what counts as misbehavior on the player's part. To start with, I thought of maybe adding two simple misbehaviors for the player and then maybe in the future later expand on this system. The two things that came to my mind were the player carrying a unsheathed weapon in a public place, such as a busy marketplace, and the player entering interiors or locations that they aren't really supposed to be in. So the first thing that I actually added was the ability for the player to seize their own weapon. I wanted weapon seizing to be pretty simple so that the player wouldn't even have to open up their inventory. So I made it so that the player can just easily seize or unsheath their equipped weapon by pressing the H key. If the player's weapon was seized, it would turn transparent on the UI and also disappear from the character's hand. So the next part was to add some behavior for villagers to actually recognize players' misbehavior and confront them about that. For example, for the unsheathed weapon in the public place, I basically make the villagers just approach the player and confront them. Hey, you shouldn't be carrying that thing around. Seize the weapon or piss off. I will probably add some more different dialogue options for the villagers depending on certain factors in the future, but for now they pretty much only have the one dialogue when they are confronting the player, just to make it a bit more clearer when they are actually doing so. The villagers will confront the player and then wait for a couple of seconds for the player's reaction. If the player hasn't stopped misbehaving, for example in this case seizing their weapon, the villagers will confront them again. And if the player still doesn't stop their misbehavior, the villagers will turn aggressive towards the player and actually attack them. At this point, player still has a chance of ending their behavior or just simply fighting the NPC. If the player starts to fight with the NPC will check their health, and if the NPC drops below 50% of their health, they will just give up the fight and leave the player alone. If the villager has attacked the player outside of their house, then they will just stop attacking and just run inside their houses and lock the door behind them. This way there's some kind of consequence for the player's action, aka not being able to access the villager's house anymore. Now we had created a confrontation system for the NPCs. Next thing I wanted to do was to check how easily I could expand on this system. So I pretty much just added a second misbehavior type for the player, which was just the NPCs detecting if the player was inside their house or in an interior they shouldn't be in. This time, as the villagers didn't have any place to run into because they were already inside their houses, I just made so that the villagers would just freeze in their place and allow the player steal their belongings and take whatever they want if the player beats the villager up. Possibly in the future I could see us adding some guards into the game, or at least to bigger villages, so possibly in the future the villagers may just run outside their house and call for guards to help them. I'm actually pretty happy how the confrontation system came out. I can't wait to see what cool things we can do with it in the future. I really think that it achieved its goal of making NPC behavior more meaningful and more interesting, and now the villagers just aren't so much of background characters anymore, and they actually have some kind of purpose. Now that the confrontation system was pretty much wrapped up, I wanted to create some incentive for the player to actually sneak up to the villagers' houses. Previously, all the loot available in the villagers' houses were only coins and apples. So what we decided to do was to add some more variety to the loot that you get from stealing from villagers, as there were now some consequences if you decide to sneak up to a villager's house. So we ended up creating a second tier of chests, which would be a bit shinier and would actually contain some better loot. But we didn't want the player to so easily grab all the loot from these chests, so we ended up introducing a lockpicking system. Every time the player would interact with a locked chest, it would bring up a menu showing the number of lockpicks in the player's inventory. And the player would have to press 4 buttons in a certain order in order to actually unlock the chest. These rare chests will contain some more rare loot. So now there's some kind of incentive for the player to actually look through villagers' houses and see if they can possibly find some rare chest in there. So how do you think these new systems turned out? Do you have any ideas for possible improvements? Definitely share your thoughts in the comments. If you guys didn't already know, I do development streams in Twitch 2 times a week, every Monday and Thursday at 2 p.m. UTC. So if you want to catch up on the newest things that I am working on with the game, then definitely go follow me on Twitch and hopefully I can see you soon live. Also, there's an active Discord server for the community to hang around in at platinum.quackbondgames.com/discord. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of this devlog. I really appreciate it. Have a absolutely fabulous rest of the day. Peace.